feels like there's more and more people in the cart as opposed to those who are outside the cart pushing it. And if it feels that way, it's because that is a fact. According to a study by the Fraser Institute, since Justin Trudeau took office in 2015 until now under Mark Carney, basically a decade of Liberal rule, 950,000 new government jobs have been created, that is, have been plowed with taxpayers' money and have taken root. Now, not all of those are federal jobs. That includes provincial governments too. But it's just a staggering number. And here to talk to us about it is our friend Kris Sims, the Alberta Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Kris, how you doing?
Wonderful, Ezra. Thanks so much for the invite.
It's such a huge number. I'm almost just a shade under 1 million people. And you know, the growth of the population doesn't warrant it. There's no excuse for it other than I don't know, it feels like it's a kind of, gestating monster like in the movie Aliens, where you have a creature inside you feeding off of you. I'm not trying to dehumanize these bureaucrats. I'm just saying they so clearly live off the avails of the productive class. I just find this such a frustrating story. Tell me what the Fraser Institute has reported.
Yeah, Ayn Rand would have called it the looters versus the producers.
Yeah.
Franco calls it the makers versus the takers.
Right.
And what this is basically far too many people have now joined the ranks of government. Charlie Kirk said it best when he said, "Big government sucks." It does. And one of the reasons why it sucks is because it sucks money out of our wallets. This report was hard to read, frankly, by the Fraser Institute. I don't know if you saw, Ezra, how much it's grown, the percentage of people who are working for various levels of government between 2015 up until now. In 2015, it was around 17-ish%. Now it's well over 21%, almost 22%. What that means, folks, is that nearly a quarter of Canadians are working for government. They're employed by the government. This isn't just about the cost, because the cost is astonishing to taxpayers. I think last year, federally alone, Ezra, we spent $70 billion just on the federal bureaucracy. Yeah. But it's also, and I think more spiritually to your show, it's such a drain. For all those people that go and join the ranks of the faceless government, that's an entrepreneur gone. That's a business person gone. That's an inventor gone, a creator. The person that actually generates wealth in this country has now just joined the cogs. And it's really upsetting. You know,
when I was young and naive, I would laugh at certain disciplines in university. Women's studies, conflict studies, peace studies, vegetarian studies. I'm making up some of those, but not many. And I would think, you're never going to get a job with that, said I. Well, was I ever wrong? All of those people are getting the great jobs, the HR jobs, the DEI jobs. The wackier, the better. They're getting all the people with degrees in sustainable this and that. Well, you would think, where on earth is there a natural demand for that? Well, there isn't, but they're all. And by the way, a lot of these jobs are six-figure jobs. There's some jurisdictions where you have what's called the sunshine list, where you can actually see it. And yeah, I think the average income for a federal civil servant has got to be more than $100,000. When that $100,000 was chosen, it was, oh, that's so high, there'll be very few people. Now it's almost everybody, including, I don't know, it's just, you start to feel like a sucker if you try and make a go of it on your own, I think.
You do. And this is remember when Mark Steyn, back in the day of Sun News Network, was warning about young kids in France wanting to grow up to become a bureaucrat?
Yeah.
You're sitting there laying awake at night dreaming about becoming some government employee. Well, unfortunately, we're kind of going there right now in Canada. And to your point exactly, Ezra, yes, the average salary for federal bureaucrats is now well over $100,000. Also, if you take a look at the stats that the Fraser Institute put out here, is that you could try to, at least I try to comfort myself saying, oh, well, we need really courageous men and women in the Coast Guard out there saving people who fall off of boats. But no, the bulk of the growth, unfortunately, has been in administrative government.
Right.
It's not the ones out there saving your life. It is administrative government growth that seems to be the fastest growing and the biggest problem.
Yeah. Now, of course, the population has grown since 2015, but that doesn't explain it. I mean, you mentioned the percent of Canadians who work for the public sector. It was 19.7%. It is now 21.5%. What that means is, even as a proportion to population, it has grown faster than population growth. That's the real giveaway. Because if Canada had doubled in size, but had only gone up a fraction of that in civil service, you could say, oh, that's actually quite economical. But it's the opposite. The growth of government has far outpaced the growth of population. Mm-hmm. I find it frustrating, but it's not just the feds, and we like to poke fun at the feds, but I'm looking at the graph here. It's British Columbia, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is actually the single worst in terms of the growth of the government class. Is that correct? That BC is the worst?
Correct. BC is the worst. And if you go take a look at British Columbia's debt level and how much its spending has gone crazy and out of control, it's enough to make you sick, Ezra. Because British Columbia, I'm a British Columbian originally, it has no business going into debt. It has no business blowing money on hiring a ton of big bureaucrats. It's literally sitting on a gold mine. I mean, one could argue, oh, if you're a tiny little landlocked province and you don't have any natural resources under your feet, well, government's going to be the biggest game in town. No, BC is got a blessing of riches underneath its feet. And you're right, it saw the fastest and highest amount of government growth, followed closely, I will point out, by Prince Edward Island.
Yeah.
And this is a problem. I have family out in Atlantic Canada. I lived out there for a time, okay? This is a problem in Atlantic Canada, to be frank. About 1 in 3, around 1/3 of people who are employed in Atlantic Canada now are employed by various levels of government.
Yeah.
1/3.
Yeah.
And it shows. It does. I'm sorry, but it shows, because then you become complacent. You want to then agree with daddy and mommy government all the time. You don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to say cut taxes. You don't want to say balance the budget, because that's where your meal is coming from. This is a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's funny you mentioned the Atlantic. I see that Newfoundland in that 10-year period actually had a shrinkage of population, which is a bit of a surprise. I thought even immigration had splashed over there. According to the Fraser Institute, in the 10-year period studied, the population of Newfoundland declined just barely by 0.2%, but that didn't stop the growth of government by 2.1%. So there are fewer people in Newfoundland than there were 10 years ago, but there are thousands more bureaucrats attending to them. It really, I don't know. And the thing, I think what you just pointed out there is your identity is no longer that of I'm a hardworking private sector person. You become part of the blob, part of the Borg, and you start to think of yourself as a defender of all government things. I would imagine psychologically you start to identify with the government instead of with the people. That's what I think is the attitudinal shift that comes with this.
Yeah, big time. And isn't that fascinating, where you can see the province, the population of the province go like this, but the population of government workers go like that. It goes up in Newfoundland and Labrador. If I can philosophize for a moment to build on your point, that could be because the young Kickstarter, upstarty type hardworking people in Newfoundland and Labrador, too many of them moved away, and they probably came to my province, in your home province here in Alberta. They're probably working in something like natural resources, the oil sands specifically. The population of Fort Mac has gained a lot of Newfoundland and Labradorians. But again, when you do that, that means that that person, who's clearly a very hardworking person, is no longer opening that business. Right. Innovating that company, starting something new in their home province. And therefore, there are fewer jobs for those younger people. And therefore, what do? You go apply for the government job. See, this is a terrible, it's like the warm Ouroboros, right? It's the snake eating its own tail. And we're unfortunately paying for it. Ezra, I don't know if you saw just how much we're actually spending at the federal level, because it kind of dovetails. The public accounts came out with their numbers, and Franco went through them. The amount of money, Ezra, on the bureaucracy last year, $70 billion with a B. But with the outsourcing for all their little lobbyists and contractors and all that crap, it's still more than 20 billion. It's close to 100 billion for the blob just at the federal level. And then you dig down into this granular data from the Fraser Institute, which shows basically all levels of government absorbing more and more fellow Canadians, costing us more and more dollars. Like, it's a serious problem.